Where is it?
Oh, there we go. I don't have my xylophone. Hi,
I did not
Sheila.
see it. Hi, Anna. How are you?
Good, good. Hey, it's April 16th, 2021. The day after April 15th. It doesn't really matter because they extended the income tax filing deadline, just as a little note to our viewers. So welcome to Cup of Joe with Anna and Sheila. I'm Anna.
I'm Sheila. We're doing a remote today.
We're doing it remote today. It's very foggy out here in Lithia, Florida. Doesn't really work in terms of cameras, but just to let everyone know, like, follow, share Cup of Joe with Anna and Sheila. We're on Facebook,
Twitter.
Instagram. We're on Instagram.
We do.
Really? I did not know that. Instagram and the Twitter and the YouTube.
Yes, we have our own YouTube channel. Yay.
Yay. And we are not professionals. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but it bears repeating all the time. We're not professionals. We're just a group of suburban women trying to get the word out, trying to talk to folks like us as to what's going on in the political scene and what we can do to flip Florida blue in 22.
Absolutely. We need to flip Florida blue. After what's been going on in that Tallahassee legislature, those people are crazy. They're crazy.
Well, Governor DeSantis, I think we should define. I think we need to define that. I think there's some very, divisive legislation that's coming through. Let's say that, and maybe it's stuff that would just run you over. Who knows? But what we're talking about is the anti-rioting.
Yep, HB1.
Yes, and if you want to go ahead, Sheila, why don't you explain to us what that is?
Governor DeSantis decided he didn't like what was going on in this past summer with the Black Lives Matter and the Antifa protests. So his signature piece of legislation was HB1, which is the anti-rioting bill, and the anti-protesting bill, which basically part of it says that if you are fearing for your life because the protesters might come and get you, that you could just run them over and you would not be charged with anything. So
I have a couple questions. So does this apply to all rioting or all protesting?
Apparently it does.
What about Girl Scout cookie drives or car wash drives or things like that? Does that apply?
Well, that's not really a riot or a protest. It's
I want to know the definition of what a protest is. So what if there's a protest, not really just an awareness campaign for Girl Scout cookies? Would that be considered a protest?
I don't know.
It'd be very interesting to see how that kind of works out, because I can see the definitional problem with this, maybe.
I was thinking more of when we were working the polls this year and people were yelling and screaming at us and we were waving or going, wee, after they drove by, that they might feel threatened and drive into us.
Yes, I think that's what people are thinking, but I see lots of issues, perhaps, but I haven't read it, so I'm really anxious to read it. Speaking of different types of urban sort of unrest, we have a very famous guest today.
We do. And who could that be?
It could be the former mayor of
Miami.
There he is.
I know. Hey, Manny.
Hey,
how are you?
I'm doing terrific. Thank you.
And Manny actually has a bigger title. He is the chair of the Florida Democratic Party.
That's correct.
So, Manny, I guess you didn't know you had your own marketing division here in Fishhawk, because we've already come up with the slogan for you.
Okay.
Flip Florida Blue in 22 with flip flops. Get it? Flip Florida Blue in 20. Yep.
I got it.
Yep.
That's very good. Thank you, Sheila.
We try really hard down here.
Yeah. It's the little things. So Manny, tell us a little bit about what's going on in the Democratic Party for our folks that are just invigorated with Hillsborough County actually is blue, and our little area, our little spots are blue. So you do have some support here, and a lot of people are very anxious to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, but by the way, just to finish your lead-in conversation, to answer Anna's question, it's 3 or more people. So if there's like 5 people that you're a part of standing on a street corner, and someone across the street decides to throw a brick through a window of a storefront, you could be arrested.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
So it doesn't really. So it could be Girl Scouts. It could be people who just get really upset and are throwing those Samoas through the public store.
yeah,
Right.
I mean, yeah. Listen, any, I mean, I'm sure all of us have been in our lives at some march or some event, even marching for March of Dimes or something, right? But in the course of that, there are some people in the group that get rowdy, that may or may not have anything to do with why you're there, but you're now part of a riot protest. So it's, and by the way, the bottom line, the worst part of all these laws, of course, is that they're very subjective. And someone, someone in Tampa may not be bothered by it, but somebody in Miami will start arresting everybody, or vice versa. It sort of depends on where you are and who's wearing the blue outfit at the time, uniform. And so it's that's why these things are, constitutionally very vague. And hopefully somebody will litigate and throw this out. I mean, obviously, we all know that this is nothing but politics on the part of the governor. Period. End of story. And in fact, even the symbolism of HB1. In other words, this is the number one priority, because that's how they file bills. It is the number one priority of the state of Florida right now. Really? People are dying. Minority communities don't have access to COVID vaccines. But no, we need to worry about HB1 and protests.
And really, this is kind of the basis of our entire system of government, right? I mean, the Boston Tea Party would not have happened. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. They weren't. They weren't exactly well behaved back then, right?
Yeah. Most change agents are not.
Yeah.
Hence,
exactly.
they're called change agents.
Right. And the other interesting part about this thing that I mean, it's particularly bothersome for me as a former local elected official is the fact that they have created this vehicle now so that if for some, first of all, I can't touch my budget, and this is of course related to the defund the police issue. So if I, for any reason, I decide that that we're going to spend more money in parks this year, and I've got to take it from somewhere. So instead of, and by the way, the other part of the budgeting process that you need to understand in local government is that the police department may give me $1 million budget, proposed budget, right? But that includes like all bells and whistles that I may not think we need, because I have a greater need in senior housing or something else, right? Nothing to do with police or defunding or any of that. And so I actually reduced that budget, right? Well, anybody on the city commission, in fact, I think for that matter, I think any citizen can complain that I am not properly securing my city, and take it up to the governor through a process up to the governor. And then they create a separate commission, which of course the governor appoints. And then they can tell me, and by the way, by extension, the residents of the city of Miami, because let's not forget, unlike the legislature, cities actually have public hearings where budgets are approved, right? And so they can tell me, no, you got to put that, $500,000 back in your budget. I mean, this is the party, by the way, that is supposed to be hands-off, anti-big government. They're doing the same thing with this whole transgender issue. My philosophy in life: look, if there's a problem, then you look for a solution. You don't create a solution for a problem that doesn't exist. And now they're telling the Florida Athletic Association, what they can and cannot do. I didn't hear anybody complaining. Who's complaining? And the list goes on and on and on. Even the electoral bill that they're messing with, that doesn't look like it's going to be as bad as what they did in Georgia, but it still has some stuff in there that's problematic. And the question is, here they were after the election, both the governor and the former president, praising and singing the praises of Florida and how smooth and how well our election went in the state of Florida. Best ever, magnificent. And what do? their first session, they're trying to rewrite everything. It's like, so what happened? What was the problem? But again, it's all politics and you know, I always find that people that don't have something positive to say, or lead in a positive way, like proactively doing things that are good for the growth of the state and for the quality of life of the people in the state. If they don't have anything positive to propose, then they rely on the negative. And that's what we find with the Republican legislature, who, by the way, have been doing the same thing for the past 20 years. Just creating these divisive issues, but not doing anything that is really in the interest of the state and the people of the state. So that's why, look, what people need to understand first and foremost is that elections do matter. Because here we are now with all these, horrendous bills that are going through the legislature. Wait till we get to redistricting, and so there are consequences. And when you have a group of people like we have up there now, it's not even, it's not politics. It's seniors are affected, the disabled community is affected, African American, Hispanic communities are affected. Everybody's affected by these decisions that these folks are making up there. So it's important. By the way, it's so important to do what you guys do, and I congratulate you on that. And it's important for people to realize that their vote really matters, because it does have consequences.
Yeah.
Real life.
Well, that's what we're trying to do, even though it's a little grassroots, a little unprofessional. It's just bring awareness. Not a little. We're actually very professional. But anyway, some we've been called very professional in some of our witty remarks, let's say. But in our marketing techniques, in our marketing slogans. But given that, there's some attention in our area, and there is this thought of, what can we do? How can we get people involved? What are ways that normal people, not to say that politicians are abnormal, maybe I could say that, but normal, regular people that are not in politics, what can they do to get involved? What can they do to bring awareness to the issues and enact change in our neighborhoods, in our state?
Well, by the way, I grew up as a volunteer. I remember the days when there were actually volunteers. I mean, by the way, it's hard to do something today in politics. And I can tell you, having worked in campaigns for the past 45 years, it's hard. In the old days, it was people like us, I mean, we went out and did it for the good of the cause, and walked door to door and made phone calls and did all those great things. And I was happy if the campaign just gave me a ham sandwich for lunch, much less get paid. And we've kind of lost a little bit of that spirit. As Democrats, we've kind of lost, sort of that sense of grassroots that we always have. That's how I grew up. By the way, many, many years later, when I decided to run for mayor, that's the kind of campaign I ran. I ran a grassroots campaign. I personally knocked on over 10,000 doors. My opponents forgot that, yes, I had become a well-known and fairly successful lawyer in town, and, a fundraiser. And they thought that that's what I was going to do, that I was just going to go out and raise a bunch of money. And they forgot I grew up in the streets, rolling my sleeves up and knocking on doors and talking to people. So look, I mean, the greatest thing that we can do is number one, understand that elections do have consequences. And you can't, when all these things happen, it is difficult to complain, I think, if you really haven't tried to do something to make it better. And for me, it's about the process, and it's about the electoral process. And it's not just, by the way, it's not just the legislature. It's about, your local mayor, your local city commissioner, the members of your school board. What more important job is there, by the way, than the education of our children? I mean, I think, to me, that's, like first and foremost on the list, because that's the future. Mm-hmm. And those are, a vulnerable population that we have to make sure, get proper and an adequate education so that they can grow up to be whatever they want to be. And so I think we need to take all those things seriously and become involved. Number one, become involved, understand the issues. There's so much disinformation out there today, but by design. I mean, we all know that, right? And it's regrettable, because to me, it's offensive, it's insulting. You're playing to people's fears and emotions, And you're getting people scared. And I know. I mean, we all talk to people, and they all, you know, and by the way, you know, people that are my contemporaries, my peers, are telling me there's stuff coming out of their mouths that it's like, you've got to be kidding me. You know, I mean, you know, read it. I mean, when I get emails from friends, and some of them are, you know, a little bit off the reservation, I research it. I go, you know, this can't be true. And sure enough, you know, 95% of the time, I find out that, you know, who's the source? You know, who's getting this information? I mean, I remember growing up as a kid, I used to, you know, at 6:30 every night, you know, and you guys are probably too young to remember this, but, you know, Walter Cronkite or, you know, CBS Evening News or ABC or NBC, they would come out for half an hour, give you the news of the day, and half an hour was, you know, generally enough. And then you had dinner with the family and watched the show and went to bed. And that was it. Now, you know, you have 24-hour bombardment of television news, you know, cable news, radio news, social media, blah, blah, blah. And it's like
Anna and
it's like,
Sheila show.
right? And your show. But it's like people are getting bombarded with a tremendous amount of information. And it really is very hard sometimes to distinguish between what's fact and what's fiction. And so I think that's an important look. Democracy can't work unless we have a properly informed population that it's up to them to make whatever decision they want. If they want to be a Republican or they want to be a Democrat, hey, we all have a right to that. But by God, you know, make sure you take the time to find out what's fact and what's not fact. Then make your decision. So I think that's important. And then I think once you do that, then it's to do the sorts of things that you're doing. And my focus, by the way, as chair of the party, is very much driven by people like you. I mean, I'm going back to the streets, if you will. I think it's essential that this be an organization that is bottom up, not top down, that focuses on every part of the state, you know, one precinct, one county at a time. We need to reconnect with people where they are. And it's up to us, I think, as ambassadors, to have those conversations with people on the ground and to get involved with people. You know, one of the things that I tell everybody is, look, it's not enough to do what we do now. Well, it's not even close to enough, which is to show up around elections and ask people for their vote. And it's like, where have you been the last 2 years or the last 4 years? Where have you been? In the meantime, we've had all these needs in our community. We've never seen you there with us. And when I say needs, I mean, you know, from after-school programs to financial literacy programs to citizenship services to help people, you know, study for citizenship exams. And there's a whole myriad. Pick the one you want. Pick the one you like. But have a presence in the community where people say, oh, look, there's so-and-so and so-and-so. They're with the Democratic Party, and blah, blah, blah. Look, they're here to help out on whatever it is, whatever program it is that is being done locally, so that people actually see you and people have an opportunity to see you. We need to reconnect. You know, I think one of the issues, obviously, that we had in 2020 is that we had lost that sense of connection with our voters and our natural allies. We had lost it. And then on top of that, you throw in COVID. And then it was like, you know, like zero ground game. There was no connectivity whatsoever on the Democratic side. On the Republican side, they never stopped. Mask or no mask. They were still out there knocking on doors and registering voters and doing everything that you would have normally done. And the results reflect that.
Right.
Well, we were scared a lot of times trying to figure out how we were going to get more Democrats in. And I'm from Boston, so all politics is local, and I get that. Right. I mean, I started going door to door with my family when I was probably 6 years old. So I get where you're coming from, and I think we do need to do more of that in Florida, especially some of the communities that don't see us. We live near Wimauma, and I don't think anybody's been to Wimauma. I know the Democrats are making a lot of inroads, but you know, they're represented by Vern Buchanan and Jim Boyd and Mike Beltran, who don't really give a hoot about what's going on in Waimama and Ruskin. They'd rather focus on the nice, rich areas where they're going to get their money.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right.
We bring awareness to our fellow neighbors here, and keep everyone apprised of different issues like like HB1 and different things that are happening that people don't really realize it until it's going to impact me, and to explain it in a fashion, in a understandable fashion, because some people are like, they don't want to get involved and just tell me how it impacts me. So we appreciate you coming on the show to kind of
I have a question though.
Pardon?
I said I have a question before we go.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Tell us a little bit about redistricting. I know that that's going to impact everybody.
Ooh, good question, Sheila.
Yeah. And when do you think, I know that they haven't released the census data, but what can we do as local Democrats to impact the redistricting process so it's much more fair, and that Anna and Sheila are not stuck with Vern Buchanan, who doesn't care what happens up here?
Yeah.
How can we impact it?
That's a huge issue, and in many ways, by the way, that is the root of all evil, because what happens is, I think even in a place like in the country, it's an alarming statistic. I think it's almost somewhere around 90% of all districts are, quote, safe districts. So whether somebody, if you classify somebody as, far left or far right, doesn't matter, because the district has been carved to be far left or far right. So it's a political problem. I mean, it's not even just a party problem. And, making people don't have to talk to each other, because for me, remember, most politicians, their first goal is to get elected and their second goal is to get reelected. And that's all, and so they don't care. They can stay on their course without talking to their colleague, because they're going to get reelected anyway. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's even worse to talk to your colleague, because your constituents will get mad at you if you actually cross the aisle and have an intelligent conversation with somebody from the other party. So it's a huge. I mean, in 2010, I actually chaired something called the Fair Districts, which was our statewide effort to get the 2 amendments passed, which we did, to create standards in Florida. They now have to follow standards. Probably some of the toughest standards in the country we were able to pass, because Floridians understood that voters should pick their elected officials. It's not the other way around. And that's what happens now. They sit around, not so much in a smoke-filled room anymore, but that sort of thing, in a closed-door session, and decide, okay, well, by the way, let's carve this district this way so that I can get elected. So the politician is choosing the voter, not the other way around, which is, sort of anti-democratic, if you ask me. And so I think people need to, if they just follow the standards, we won, then we had to litigate because the Republicans sued us, and I think we spent 3 or 4 years. So I don't think the new districts were in place until probably much later. Some of them, they tried, they threw them out. The courts actually threw them out and made them do it again. And I think we increased, when we picked up, I think 4 or 5 new congressional Democrats, as a result of the, and it's just about making districts competitive. And so what you're really only asking your elected official is, number one, now that we have guidelines, follow the guidelines, because the districts should be competitive. I mean, by the way, it makes for a better democracy, because if you have, a district that has 50% Democrats and 50% Republicans, you got to win somebody from the other side, right, in order to get a majority. So you're forced to be more, try to have the greater appeal to the greater number of people, as opposed to just saying, by the way, I'm a Democrat and my district is 90% Democrat, so I don't care what the Republicans think. Well, that's not right either, because when you're in elective office, you have to represent everybody in that community, right? And so I think it's just a function of telling your electors, look, just follow the rules, follow the guidelines.
Well, thank you.
Sure, absolutely.
Follow the rules, follow the guidelines, Sheila. That's what we always do.
Right.
I don't know about
That's our motto.
Manny, we appreciate you coming on. We'd love to have you back as it gets a little bit away from the state legislative session and we see what damage they've done.
How much?
Yeah, just
Oh, Lord.
assessing it. It will be there, just assessing it and how to take care of it. We're happy to ignite our forces, our little, volunteer forces to help with whatever, whatever damage that we can help with.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you so much for what you guys do. I really mean that from the bottom of my heart. That is the heart and soul of democracy, what you do. There's nothing more
Thank you.
important. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Turn Florida blue in 22.
Yes.
Flip.
Have a great weekend and stay safe.
Thanks, you too.
All right,
Bye-bye.
see you.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.
Woo, we have a mayor. Woo, so exciting, a former mayor.
I know. And Miami, I love Miami.
I know, right? Right?
I know. We should move there.
That's an option. That's an option, especially with this new HB1. I mean, what's going to happen to all the stuff that happens in Miami? I think there's more than 3 people always talking about something.
Oh, Lord. I know. Wait, there was a mask burning protest the other day. We could have run them over.
We could have.
Anyway,
all right,
Anna,
Sheila. So
it's a
good to
good
see you
weekend.
remote. Sorry with the fogginess here in Florida. To Ruth.
To Ruth.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you, Manny.
everyone.